right. Hey, we got an off day. Oh, how come we're not off?
Try not to make anybody mad today, would you? Please.
Who did I make mad yesterday?
I'm sure there's somebody.
Although I would like to know why this damn thing keeps.
Ready to lift a weight or two, buddy. I get my son to come do that for you tomorrow.
I'm more concerned about losing weight than lifting weight.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my thing.
Is it?
My age, lifting weights doesn't help.
No, it doesn't.
What's it going to do?
Help you push that thing up and down.
I'll get people to do it. It's Blair and Barker. It's Thursday. It's an off day. The Jays start a 3-game series against the Cleveland Guardians tomorrow. Then they've got the Red Sox. Jason Kipnis is going to join us at 5:30. He was an awfully good player for the Cleveland Guardians. He is now doing radio analysis for the Guardians. He's also a contributor to Foul Territory, which is my second.
What's analysis?
My second favorite baseball podcast after this one. Huh?
What's analysis mean?
He's a color commentator.
Well, why don't you say that? Why'd you say analysis? Like I don't understand that.
There's fewer syllables.
That sounds like
analysis.
a khaki. That's why. I mean, just say color analyst. Why you say? I don't know what you just said, but it wasn't good. That's not even what the paper says anyway.
I don't care what the paper says.
It doesn't say that.
Caleb Joseph, Blue Jay Central analyst.
There you go.
Will join us at 5:30.
Boy, let's not overthink this thing, man. It's like on deck circle, have a plan. Walk to the plate, don't vary from the plan. Yeah. That's where it's at, buddy.
Yeah, be quiet. Brandon Gomes is the executive VP and GM of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Wow. He will join us at 4:30.
Boy, just gloating about that dude playing right and left for him.
It's great. He wanted to know a little bit about what we were going to ask him about, and our producer, Mark Boffo, said, while the Biggio trade and also Teoscar.
Yeah, we put Teo in big letters.
And his response was, quote, Teo's my guy.
Yeah, I bet he is.
I bet he is. Yeah, I bet Teoscar Hernandez. He should be your guy.
You look like a genius, bud.
He did.
Anyhow, that guy up in the middle of the order.
Brandon Gomes will join us at 4:30. Looking forward to that. It'll be a lot of fun. Cavan Biggio made his debut yesterday, got a hit.
About that.
And there was a great shot. Craig Biggio, his dad was at the game. I don't know if you saw the shot on social media. He's leaning back, the chair, with his arm in the chair, like didn't even flinch. But, hey, I mean, all kidding aside, we wish Cavan all the best. He's in a nice, tell you what, he's in a nice situation there. And so we'll be joined by Brandon Gomes. Mark Feinsand is going to join us in a few minutes. He is with MLB Network and MLB.com. We got to talk about Aaron Judge. I mean, Mark's a New York-based writer. Aaron Judge is just, I mean, he's hitting at a pace right now that's better than the pace when he was hitting all those home runs and challenging and hitting the home run record and all. He's ahead of that. The fun thing about anytime anybody in the Yankees is on a roll or is challenging for something, it's kind of cool reading their game notes and seeing the names, like so-and-so. It's the most home runs by a Yankee in a month since Joe DiMaggio, Lou Gehrig, and Babe Ruth, right? Awesome, names that are coming out are pretty incredible. Aaron Judge is just remarkable. So Mark will join us to talk about that. And we'll talk about his article, 10 Potential Trade Chips Whose Stock is Rising, that led by Pete Alonso. There are a number of interesting guys in here. So, again, this is whose stock is rising. In other words, dudes who are having the type of year that makes them more intriguing to teams than otherwise might have been. Bo and Vladdy ain't on that list. So I think the industry's kind of assumed that they're going to need to wait a little longer to see what exactly the Jays' intentions are. This is the industry, not us. What exactly the Jays' intentions are.
Yeah, there's 2 games in front of them for the third wild card spot. They're on a 3 back. I mean, they're 200, 500. You ain't get it. If you trade them, what you get? Who's playing short? Who's playing first? Anyway, good luck.
I mean, Daniel Vogelbach.
Go for
he
it.
Could always play first.
I guess
base.
he could. It's not Daniel's fault he's on the team.
I'm not saying it is.
Well, you are a little.
Well, I'm not.
You're blaming Daniel Vogelbach. It's not his fault.
You just said he could play first base.
Well, it's not his fault he's on the team. It's like all the time whenever I, say something that I probably shouldn't say about George Springer, and you always say it's not his fault he's making $25 million a year.
It's not.
So it's not Daniel's fault he's on the team, and You know, being a good teammate and a good friend. And,
I'm not saying it is.
You know, walking Bo off the plank occasionally. I mean, that's.
I'm not saying it is.
Somebody needs to do it.
I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is at all.
Hmm.
You're jumping to conclusions. And
it's a day off, and
usually it takes you to the second.
You know what? You know what it was is the train today was
Here we go.
Was canceled. So I had to wait another 30 minutes for the next train, and I was thinking it started to fester. Like it just started to like boil over. And I may have taken this first 5 minutes out on you. So I apologize. I want to say it right now to the people that are watching and listening that I apologize to you for taking it out on my coworker. I should never do that.
Yeah, it's not my fault that the trains had an issue.
It is
today.
your fault.
My train didn't.
I got nobody else to yell at, Jeff, so
my train didn't have any issue today.
Mine did.
Oh, wait, I drove in.
I was standing out there in the. You drove?
I drove in today.
Are you sick?
No, it was fine.
That's
it took me like an extra.
That is the dumbest thing.
Took me like an extra 10 minutes. You just got to know your window. You got to know when to drive in. You got to know your window. You got to plan ahead. You got to use this thing. They've invented all sorts of stuff that you can look at in there that tells you about your traffic flow.
I sit on the train by myself and don't worry about that. You're picking.
Scoured. You're that guy.
Only if it was canceled and it's 30 minutes
You're
later.
that guy. You're sitting in the train.
No.
People walk by. They want to sit there. You just kind of scour. You glower at them like that.
Going home, there's a lot of people coming to work. The train is empty, so I don't have to worry about finding a seat or standing.
Hey, let's play a clip from Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers. I want to play this before Mark joined, just because we are going to be talking about trades. And this was Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, talking about what he thinks Cavan Biggio can bring to the Dodgers.
I had a good conversation with Cavan earlier. It's good to have him. Funny story is I think I saw him maybe in an airport years ago. I think it was an airport or somewhere, and I said, hey, one of these days you're going to be a Dodger. You're going to play for me one of these days. And he remembered that little interaction, and sure enough, it came to pass. But he's a baseball player. He's versatile, can play anywhere, essentially on the diamond. For us right now, just Max, the injury's taken longer than we had hoped. And so to get some coverage versus right-handed pitching, running him out there at third base is sort of the plan. And if I have to kick him out, whether it be to center, to right, to second base, during a game for whatever reason, if the game calls for it, we can do that. It's primarily just to play third base versus right-handed pitching.
Center field.
There you go.
When one door closes, it is truly amazing. I mean, that has to be a great feeling. I've never felt that before in my entire life. It was released a bunch of times, and basically teams just say we don't want anything to do with you, and then it's very hard to find another job. To actually be Cavan Biggio, where you weren't playing against a team that quite frankly ain't living up to expectations, and then getting an opportunity that your next team is the Dodgers, and then have the manager welcome you like that. I mean, man, alive. Second opportunities, and boy, you better start hitting. Like, you going to play more. Them 8 pitch outs aren't going to last so long with the Dodgers. So you better start getting that thing down and getting it singing a little bit more.
Yeah, again, though, he's not.
Just a little.
Again, though, I would think the offensive expectations for him with the Dodgers aren't great. It sounds very
200s.
It sounds very much like they want him to give them a little bit of balance and a little bit of depth, and that's fine. That's what Cavan Biggio is. We've talked about this. Cavan Biggio is not gonna make a mistake. He's not gonna kill you with a dumb base running play or thrown to the wrong base or anything like that. And the other thing about Cavan Biggio, at the end of the day, I mean, when he was here, he was what he was, and he is what he is. You never come away thinking, Cavan kind of got cheated by Cavan Biggio today. I'd like to see him be more aggressive. But, again, this it'll be interesting to see what he does offensively the rest of the year with the Dodgers after what we saw him turn into here. Like, this is, if he goes to the Dodgers and finds himself a little bit offensively, then I think you're going to have to ask more questions about what's going on here.
We've already been asking those questions.
But, look, third base, and as he said, and as Dave Roberts said, kick him out to center field. I mean, bottom line is Mookie, Freeman, Will Smith, Ohtani. They're going to, if you're Cavan Biggio, just don't do something stupid that's going to take something away from them.
But again, they are looking for length in their lineup. And the Dodgers are a little bit like the Yankees, right? It's the back end of your lineup that you're trying to get better. And if you have Gavin Lux and Cavan Biggio and, certain guys at the bottom of your order that, quite frankly, ain't getting it done offensively, then you're going to make some changes. This is my point is,
and let's be clear.
I'm not saying he's not a good player because I've been tooting that horn for a while that he's a really good player on a really good team, and he'd be a great 25th, 26th guy. And that's exactly what the Dodgers are asking him to do. But you want to consistently be a big leaguer, you got to hit more. Like it is. And you're playing third now?
See, I think what this is all designed. Everybody in baseball knows that the Dodgers want to get rid of Gavin Lux. I mean, they do. Everybody in baseball knows they want to get rid of him. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that regardless of what Cavan does here, he's probably going to be on that team in some capacity. He may be the 26th guy on that team in some capacity. Yeah. But anyhow, it's good for him.
That's good for the player. That's all I know. I've been in his shoes. Not having the big
Jays did. Not having the big Jays did him a solid too. Let's be honest, they did him a solid.
Some would say they didn't when he was here, but.
Well, no, but I mean,
I guess. They traded him to a good team.
They also put some money in to get the deal done, which, again, we'll see what the pitcher, we'll see what Braden Fisher brings back. Lots of strikeouts, lots of walks. 23-year-old right-hander. I mean,
Jay's never had a problem finding that side of the ball.
Yeah.
It's the dudes that play every single day that they've had some issues trying to find.
Mark Feinsand is MLB Network analyst and MLB.com executive reporter. He joins us on Blair and Barker. Mark, thanks for doing this. Want to talk about Aaron Judge, obviously, but also touch on your latest column on MLB.com, 10 potential trade chips whose stock is rising. First thing I wanted to ask you about that is, when you look at the standings right now, understanding that we're more than a month away from the trade deadline, but if we get to the trade deadline and we still have the same number of teams that are at 500 or under or within 4 or 5 games of the wild card spot, is that going to make for a more active trade season, do you think, or might it have the reverse effect and maybe make teams a little more cautious to take risks?
I think the latter. I think it's going to have the inverse effect and make some teams a little more cautious because even if you're 5-6 games under 500 and you're looking at the wild card standings and you're 2 games out of a wild card spot, a GM might say, well, I don't know if I want to go give up some prospects to add, but, good week here, and all of a sudden we're back, we're in a playoff spot. So I think it could really have an impact on teams like the White Sox, the A's, the Angels, the Marlins, and the Rockies, who are definite sellers because not only do they stink, but they're way out of, they're all 10 games or more out of a playoff spot. And if they know they're sellers, and there are few and far between in terms of the number of other sellers, or teams that are waiting until the final day or two before the deadline to sort of make their decision, well, those other 5 or 6 teams are going to have a few weeks to say, well, you want some more time with these players, you want to jump the market, the price of poker is going up.
Mark, in your mind, do you think the Astros are only one piece away from making a decent run at this thing?
No, I think they've had some injury issues. Obviously, they've got a couple guys going undergoing Tommy John, and frankly, I think you look at their division. The Rangers, we know, are going to get healthier as their pitchers start to come back. I like what the Mariners have done, and I think they're a legitimate threat. And we know Jerry Dipoto, he's going to keep adding and make trades because he can't help himself. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a tough division, and you've got 5 teams between the Astros and the number 3 wild card. So it's not like you're just 5.5 games out, but there's only one team ahead of you. It's a lot of teams you have to jump, including the one there in your backyard. So I think with all of these teams at 500 and below, and the fact that, the Jays are 2 under and 3 out of a playoff spot, the Astros are 7 under and 5.5 out of a playoff spot. Move over to the National League. The Mets are 8 under, 3.5 games out of a playoff spot. I think when you get to July, let's say 20th, 23rd, about a week or 10 days out from the deadline, this is where you're going to see which GMs truly believe their team is A, capable of getting to the postseason, and B, capable of actually making some noise once they get there. Because hanging around the wild card race, if you don't believe your team is good enough to actually do something, that's where the self-evaluation becomes really important. And you'll see which GMs say, yeah, I think it's time to sell, because while we're close to a playoff spot, we're just not good enough.
What do you think it would take to get Pete Alonso away from the Mets?
It's a good question. That's where we go back to the whole, they're 3.5 games out of a playoff spot,
Yep.
And I don't know that they're necessarily eager to have a second straight deadline where they sell and they send a message to their fan base, wait till next year. It's a talented team. They got a lot of payroll, a lot of good players. So if they're sitting 2 or 3 games out of a playoff spot with that last week of July, David Stearns is going to be one of those guys who has to really do some harsh self-evaluation and determine whether he thinks his team is good enough to actually go on a run and get to the playoffs. And if you get there, can you do something with it? If they decide to trade him, I'm not sure it's going to take that much. I mean, you're basically trying to beat a 4th-round qualifying offer compensatory pick.
Yep.
Because if the Mets don't trade him and he walks, that's what they get. So I don't think they're going to get him for a fringe prospect, but if they do trade him, I don't think it's going to be a situation, with two months or 2 months and change left until he hits free agency, where you're going to have to give up multiple top prospects by any means.
What I find really intriguing about Pete Alonso is, first of all, I'll ask you, pardon me, do you have any sense if at any point in the last couple of years they were close in getting his name on a multi-year contract to carry through free agency? But beyond that, yeah, I have a hard time seeing how the Mets wouldn't be better next year with Pete Alonso. And I'm wondering if we're not seeing a scenario here where they trade Pete Alonso, and then when he is a free agent, there's nothing stopping the Mets from going back and making him the biggest offer in the market, is there?
No, not at all. I don't know if they've ever been real close. I think once he hired Scott Boras to be his agent, most people just assumed, okay, they're end any chances of him signing an extension this close to free agency. We've only seen really one player get to the level, that situation you just painted, where the team trades him at the deadline and then goes out and re-signs him in free agency. That was Aroldis Chapman. Yankees traded him to the Cubs in 2016, brought back a nice little haul, including Gleyber Torres, and then re-signed him at the end of the season as a free agent. I think some people, Alonso's an emotional guy. He loves New York. He may be, I think they'd have to explain to him, look, this doesn't mean we don't want to re-sign you. This doesn't mean we don't want you back, but we're out of it this year, and we can make our team better going forward and give you a better team if we can bring you back as a free agent. I'm not ruling out that possibility. When you're the Mets and you have Steve Cohen's bankroll, you're not going to get outbid for any player if you really want them. And, if Cohen shows Alonso the money in the offseason after trading him, unless Alonso is just super sensitive and says, no, you traded me, to hell with you, I don't see anything that would stand in the way of that happening. Alonso's free agency would be really fascinating to me, because first basemen don't get paid the way they used to.
You're right.
The Albert Pujols, Joey Votto contracts, those are way in the past. And I just don't, I think Alonso is looking at himself as being, that $250 million type contract guy. I'm not sure teams pay first baseman like that anymore.
Him and Soto would look really good in the Mets uniform. That righty-lefty combo hitting home runs from both sides of the plate would look pretty cool. This is the best Aaron Judge you've ever seen. Yeah. Well, can't believe I'm asking you that. But
the guy from 2 years ago hit 62 home runs, won the MVP. Look, Judge is on a heater. And what's interesting about it is, towards the end of April, fans were calling New York sports radio stations saying they needed to bench Judge for like a week because he'd been so bad and he's really hurting the team. Fortunately, Aaron Boone doesn't follow the advice of Vinny from Brooklyn because we might not have been treated to this remarkable May and June that we've seen from Judge. I don't think anybody questions how good this guy is and how good he can be. The question with him has always been, can he stay healthy? Last year, the injury was, was that 2 years ago? No, last year. The injury was a fluke, running into a wall, a one spot of concrete in Dodger Stadium, and he basically broke his toe. There are fluke injuries that happen because he plays as hard as he does. But if he can stay healthy, I find it hard to see anybody who could challenge him for the MVP this year, aside from the guy who hits next to him in the lineup, because Soto's been pretty darn impressive himself. And if the Yankees pitching can just stay healthy and sort of in the general area it's been, and they're going to get that guy Cole back soon, that's going to be a really, really tough team.
Mark, did it tell you anything when Soto was in the lineup against the Dodgers? Dodgers took 2 out of 3 in Yankee Stadium. That without those two in the lineup at the same time, chances of them making a deep run or winning the World Series are slim.
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously they're a much better team with them both in there, and it becomes a lot harder when you take Soto out. But couldn't you say that for every team in baseball?
Sure,
I mean,
absolutely.
The Dodgers had Freeman and Betts and Ohtani in the lineup. Well, you take one of those guys out, they don't look quite as fierce as they do with all of them in there. So I don't know that it's any different for Judge and Soto than it is for any other top 2 hitters in any lineup. But again, if you go in, I mean, Nestor Cortez did not have a good game against the Dodgers. They're pitching. They lost Clark Schmidt's injury. They've had some guys go out. They need Cole back at this point because they've held the fort without him. Luis Gil's been phenomenal. He should probably start the American League All-Star for the American League All-Star team at the moment. I mean, there's still a month to go till that. But he's also never thrown a whole bunch of innings. So, what's his second half going to look like? If Cole can come back and, reestablish himself as a healthy Cy Young caliber pitcher, that would take a lot of burden and pressure off the other guys. But, yeah, I mean, the Yankees' best chance to advance deep into the postseason is going to be, with Soto and Judge just terrorizing opposing pitchers.
Good stuff as always, Mark.
Awesome.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, guys. Talk to you soon.
See you well. That's Mark Feinsand. He's the executive reporter with MLB.com and with the MLB Network.
You think they're, Jeff, you think they're worried? I was looking at some stats when I was watching the Yankees game a little bit earlier. You see Anthony Rizzo. Anthony Rizzo don't look real good. What do you think they do with that? He's a pretty good defender. He reminds you a little bit of Springer in right field.
You made a good point about the back end of their lineup. Here's where I kind of stand with the Yankees. I don't think we will have an idea about what the Yankees want to do until we see where Garrett Cole is. If Garrett Cole comes back, and Garrett Cole could be back as early as next week. If Garrett Cole comes back and stays healthy and is Garrett Cole, then I think if you're the Dodgers or if you're the Yankees, then I think you focus, you go all in and try to get another bat. Mm-hmm. Maybe somebody to platoon with Rizzo at first base, somebody that somebody that you can just take a little bit, somebody that allows you to be a little more careful when you play him, be a little more picky when you play him. I mean, the payroll's not going to be an issue for the Dodgers. Nobody's going to be sitting there and saying you're making all that money. You got to play every day.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can really know anything until you see where Garrett Cole is in his recovery. And again, if Garrett Cole is Garrett Cole, given what they've had from Luis Gil, I've got to think, every team, the one thing is every team in baseball that has a playoff spot or thinks it has a playoff spot, they're going to add bullpen help at the deadline. Yeah. They are. They're going to add some sort of reliever. But let's just see where Garrett Cole is before you pivot off and try to find somebody to take over for Anthony Rizzo. But you're right. He's not He's not the same hitter.
You'd think about Torres, LeMahieu, and Rizzo somewhere back to back at the bottom of that order. It's a lot to ask the top end of the order. To your point, you get back your pitching the way it's supposed to be lined up. You like your closer. You like other parts of your pen. It seems to be working out the way they're matching up and the right pockets and that kind of thing. It's just the bottom end. What can you get from it? I mean, look, if the Rangers sort of told you anything of winning a World Series, it's a lot of luck, right? It's sometimes about the team you're playing.
Yeah.
But it is about one superstar can carry you. So you don't need that really super length in your lineup. But, I mean, working through the American League is not the easiest thing to do. So I just wonder about that. I wonder if you have two or three of those guys, that might be hard to make up for.
I also think if you're the Yankees, I know we're up against the clock here, we'll break in a minute, but I also think if you're the Yankees, when the trade deadline hits, if you are where they are right now, then I think you probably start thinking, okay, we're going to run into this team in the playoffs. What do we need to give us a better shot of beating that team? Be it Baltimore or be it Cleveland or whomever, whoever comes out of the West. Like, what do we need that gives us a better shot of beating this particular team?
If you have to match up against the rotation for the Mariners, is your lineup good enough? Is it long enough to do that? That's the thing you got to ask yourself, right?
The other thing that you used to see more of, and you don't see as much of it now, but I wonder if you are the Yankees, you get Garrett Cole back, and you know that the Baltimore Orioles are going to be looking for a reliever.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you're the Yankees, you go out and make a trade to basically block them from getting that reliever, which is what teams used to do that all the time.
Sure.
They go out and make a deal to block another team from doing it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's, again, that depends. I just think with the Yankees, let's see where Garrett Cole is. They're a healthy Garrett Cole, given where they are right now, a healthy Garrett Cole, you may not have to, if you're the Yankees, you may say, you know what, we really don't have to do anything. But, again, we do know that every team is going to look for relief arms at the trade deadline. And I think that might be a little interesting if the Yankees decide, you know what, it might be a little overkill to add a reliever, but if we can get that dude and keep him away from the Orioles, it's worth doing it.
But Booty's had some time, too, in that playoffs of making the right decision. So you give him some more no-brainers.
Yep.
Again, it is what it is, and a lot of that's luck and matching up the right guy. So it's intriguing.
Brandon Gomes is the executive VP and general manager with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Brandon Gomes joins us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. The Blue Jays have today off. They will take on the Cleveland Guardians in a 3-game series starting tomorrow at the Rogers Center. And the Guardians, I'm sure baseball fans know, have had a pretty good start to the year. And, of course, they will be bringing the Naylor boys into town with them as well. Also, a reminder that this weekend is Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame induction weekend in St. Mary's, Ontario. It'll be Saturday afternoon, and the inductees include Ashley Stevenson, Russell Martin, Paul Godfrey, Howie Burney. There'll be a ton of people there, and our Buck Martinez.
Absolutely.
Going in as well.
Well deserved.
We look forward to seeing folks out there in St. Mary's. Looking forward to being down there.
Nice, me too.
On Saturday.
Excited.
Yeah,
the whole family's going.
It's a nice.
My son's never been. I'm happy to take him, and
you going to show him my exhibit?
I'm sure we will walk by it and take a photo of it. Absolutely.
I wouldn't take a photo of it.
Why not? Should be proud of that.
I am, but I mean, it's like it's not an exhibit. It's a thing.
They don't just give you that. You have to earn it.
Well, you have to.
So you
have to be voted.
If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will, Jeff. Well, just remember that. I had to learn that the hard way. I was released 4 or 5 times the last day of spring training. If I didn't learn that, I'd have been here with you long before I actually was with you.
I'm not used to people saying nice things about me.
Well, I mean, don't get used to it, but it's not going to. It will rarely happen, but this is one of those times where call a spade, my friend.
Yes, we are having technical issues with Brandon Gomes.
Well, we'll get him on. No problem.
We are having technical issues at getting Brandon Gomes
I just wonder
on.
what it's like being the GM of the Dodgers.
We will endeavor to
I wonder what that's like.
Maybe we get him on another day. If we can't get him on today, it's no big issue. I mean, I don't know. The Dodgers are in some ways, well, no, they're actually not like the Yankees. Very odd. I watched a couple of those games against the Yankees, and really, I know they took 2 or 3 from the Yankees, but there's something about the Dodgers, and I don't know what it is.
I do.
Something about the Dodgers that wouldn't make me, I wouldn't be terrified about facing them in the postseason. I understand the top of the lineup's good. I get all that. But I wouldn't be quaking in my boots about facing the Dodgers.
Well, that would mean you'd probably get beat quicker than other teams.
I don't know.
It's you'd have to respect them. I mean, who you not going to let beat you in the lineup?
Yeah, but I don't know if they're.
There's the first 4 guys. Will Smith, nobody ever talks about. He might be one of their best, if not their best hitter. Like the things he does.
I just don't know if they have the pitching to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't. Again,
they didn't last year.
You could have said that a little bit last year about the Rangers too. Again, a lot of that's going into that stuff is luck. I mean, you got to have the right guy hot at the right time.
That's fair.
Again, and I'm sure the Dodgers front office will go out and do what they have to do to sort of solidify what has to be done when it comes to the pitching side. And, we sort of bring up Teoscar's name a lot. He just seems to have that dramatic for that moment. Like, just lights are the brightest, New York, I'm going to show up and have 9 RBIs.
Their run differential, their run differential is 104. Which is 4th best in the majors. I will tell you this, though. In a playoff series, I'm taking the Phillies over them. I wouldn't even have to think twice about that.
I mean,
I wouldn't have to think
that's
twice.
A little unfair because the 3-headed monster that the Phillies have.
That's not unfair. That's who they're going to have to. That's who they're going to have to face. What do you mean it's unfair? That's who they're going to have to face.
That's why everybody's picked the Phillies to be the best team in baseball to start the season. Like, you're not just saying that off the cuff and going, well, I'm the first one to say I'd take the Phillies over the Dodgers.
You just basically finished saying everybody should be afraid of the Dodgers.
Could have 4 Hall of Famers in a row. The first 3 for sure. Will Smith's on his way with what he's doing offensively, and he's a pretty good catcher. So, I mean, look, it's a lot of that's luck when you get to the playoffs, and sometimes it's just matching up talent-wise. Are they the best team
in the National League for you?
Absolutely not. The Phillies have been that all year.
There you go.
And I never said that. I'm not saying they are. Are they better than the 2 teams in the American League? Are they better than the Yankees? Are they better than the Orioles?
Yeah.
I mean, the Astros are not in the conversation yet.
No.
So that's what you got to ask yourself, right? You splitting hairs. Are they better than the Braves? There you go.
I think this year they are, with the Braves injuries, the Braves that don't have their big guy. Yeah. If Ronald Acuna Jr. is not there, they are better than the Braves. The Braves intrigue me because I don't know how Alex approaches his trade deadline. I really don't. They are right now. What are they? Are they 8 out? They can't be that far out, are they? Yeah, they're 9.5 out of the division.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and we know that Alex loves them some run differential.
Yeah,
their run differential's plus 28. That is 81 runs behind the Phillies.
They're not hitting homers.
This is remarkable. That's 33 runs behind the Brewers, and we won't even bother doing the math on the Dodgers. Well, they're 81 runs. 81 runs behind the Dodgers in run differential. They're actually behind the Padres in run differential too. So Alex talked to us about when he was here in 2015. One of the reasons he made the moves he made is because they were ahead of the Yankees in run differential, and he was convinced that even though the Yankees were ahead of them in the standings, they were within striking range, and that with all those games left against the Yankees, they could win. It's a little different here. I'm looking at. I'll ask you this as we continue to see whether or not we're going to get
fingers crossed. Braves have 2 guys in double digits homers.
Why are we not? Are we not buying the Mariners? 40-30, 6.5 up on the Rangers. Are we not? No one talks about the Mariners.
Yeah, I think because the Mariners are a little bit like the Blue Jays. Like Rodriguez has gotten off to a slow start. He's a little like Vladdy, right? I mean, you're still waiting for the sort of the curtain to open up, and here come the MVP that everybody was picking in the offseason to show up to 2024. And nobody said that they couldn't match up with the best offenses on planet Earth because of the rotation they have. And that still holds true. It's just the fact, can sort of that GM who likes to just throw things against the wall and run out and do it, can he sort of back off or add a piece or just get the right piece instead of pieces and try and fill in the blanks offensively to, have an aircraft carrier or two show up? That's the thing, right? And what would it take to give up and get? And, their minor league system's a little bit better. They do have a little bit more down there that they can give up to get what maybe they need. P. Alonso might look good in that lineup. So there is something buying in. Absolutely. I mean, they can pitch better than most. When you can pitch, you can play decent defense. Yeah, you can run the bases. You don't normally beat yourself that way. It's just offensively, can they score enough runs to make a decent run at it? That's the big thing. And I think their pen, they throw hard enough in the pen, and service is good enough, I think, so far to match up in the pocket thing and, what everybody else yells and screams about. So, it just gets back to that Blue Jay Mariner thing. They're sort of the same kind of team, right?
They've only scored 271 runs this year, which the Mariners, which is there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams ahead of them, 10 teams ahead of them.
Right there, you got where the Blue Jays are at?
Blue Jays are 265. They've only got there's 6 runs less than the Mariners. So
yeah.
run differential, the Mariners are plus 12. We talked about the Blue Jays are minus 30.
When I was digging into some numbers, why the Guardians are having a good season and why the Jays are not matching up to teams like the Guardians and the Twins and the teams that you would think that they would add a little separation from. And then you look at 2 players on both sides of those teams. And I dug into this, and when I was adding these up, I couldn't believe it. I even went back and added it again because I couldn't believe what I was adding up. Bo and Vladdy, combined home runs and RBIs between the 2 players. 11 homers, 58 RBIs between Bo and Vladdy. That's combined. Ramirez and Naylor combined. 35 home runs and 112 RBIs. There's your difference. You wonder why the Blue Jays are 2 games under 500 and 3 out and have 2 teams ahead of them for the third wild card spot. There's two names. Like, you can throw in all the Davis Schneiders and the Horowitz and the, George Springers has his toe dipped in that a little bit too. But it just comes down to you wonder why, right? The Guardians are 6th in runs. They're 7th in stolen bases. They're 5th overall in team ERA. They're 1st in ERA out of the pen. They're 1st in what? Average against at 192 out of the pen. Like, their pen is great. They have 2 great offensive players that are carrying the load. That's basically 2024 for baseball teams, no?
Pretty much.
And you get enough starting pitching.
We've been giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets all season long here on Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball trivia question to 590-590. Our last trivia question and answer was before earning a seat next to Brett Lowry. I can never say that name. Are they L-A-W? Whatever. Brett Lowry in the Blue Jays clubhouse. This MLB veteran turned broadcaster enjoyed a 71-game stint with Cleveland back in 2009.
No way I'd have got this.
The answer is Mark DeRosa. Today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays and the Red Sox at the Rogers Center on June 17th. Before becoming an MLB coach and eventually a manager, this infielder bookended his career with the Blue Jays and played 1 season with Boston in 2009 before retiring after the 2011 season. Again, before becoming an MLB coach and eventually a manager, this infielder bookended his career with the Blue Jays and played 1 season with Boston in 2009 before retiring after the 2011 season. Text your answer to 590-590 for your shot to win. See rules at sportsnet.ca/590. I did not get this. This is a, and it annoyed me because I covered this guy while he was here, and I just didn't put 2 and 2 together. Well, I did, but I came up with 5. As quite often happens, as you well know. Caleb Joseph joins us in the next hour. Jason Kipnis, former Guardian second baseman and contributor to Foul Territory, will be along. He is Cleveland's radio analyst for this weekend series against Toronto. What?
You know all that. Good job.
I just said he's Cleveland's radio analyst. He's going to be providing analysis.
Yeah.
On the radio.
Just tell me why.
Broadcast.
That's all you got to do.
I mean, I thought.
Tell me why he went home to second. That's all I want to know. Did he cut the corner at first good? Did he get a better jump? Like, that's his job. To tell us why.
Yeah.
That's all I want to know.
Okay.
It's a former player's job, right, when he's sitting in that chair.
All right. I guess. I mean, just very odd. You're odd today. You're in an odd mood today.
I think that 30 minutes and...
You're odd today. You're in a very odd mood. It's kind of disconcerting.
Is it?
It's had that feel about all day, though.
Yeah, I think that depressing little thing, too, about the 2 players for the Blue Jays and the 2 players for the Guardians.
That's not.
It is. Like, it's, the expectations and knowing how good those 2 players can be and how they've gotten off to a really, really slow start. I mean, Vladdy's not top 50 in total bases in baseball. It's embarrassing. I'm sorry. I mean, his talent's too off the charts to be not in the top 50 in total bases. It's not good enough. This is what they were hanging their hat on. This is why the GM came out and said,
I don't find it.
We believe in the. It's not depressing, but it's the. You can again. You wonder why the Jays are where the Jays are at. That's why. You look at the 2 teams. The difference, right? The pen is off the charts. That's one of the main reasons. But the defense for the Jays could make up the woes for the pen situation. If the 2 guys for the Jays that the expectations were off the charts from the GM going into the season, that's the difference, buddy. 112 RBIs to 58 RBIs, Jeff. You had another 50 stakes to Bo and Vladdy. They ain't 3 back of the 3rd wild card spot, I can tell you that. And they're not under 500. I can tell you that.
No, I mean, it's hard. Listen, it's hard to argue. We just don't have any answers for it. They don't have any answers for it. We don't have any answers for it. I tend to think.
I think we got a solid. I think we can come up with one or 2.
I tend to think. I think Bo is a little more. To me, that's a little more. I wouldn't say problematic. That might be a little more confusing than Vladdy. I think I'm with you with Vladdy, and you've talked about the obvious mechanical changes that need to. Does Bo need to make a mechanical change? I don't know. I don't. Do you think that the stuff we're seeing or not seeing from Bo is related to mechanics? I just don't.
I think it's a lot what he swings at in certain counts.
Decisions more than
that's a lot to do. I mean, when he's Bo, you swing whatever you want to swing at. When you ain't Bo, you got to look right down the middle more times than not. Stop. I mean, again, how dare I say this about a guy who
should be an easier fix, Kevin? Who should be an easier fix, Bo or Vladdy? Your gut opinion. Who should be an easier fix?
I don't think there's an answer for that. I think a lot of this is mental. I think this is. Boy, this is very hard for me to speak from change of scenery kind of things. I would think, maybe one of the 2 might be where that person's at. It could be some of it's mechanical, some of it's about what you swing at, some of it's about what's not around them in the lineup. That's a lot of it. You add all that together, expectations, and that's an impossible question to answer.
Okay.
I know what I would do with both.
What would you do with both?
Stop having them see 75 different hitting coaches, do the same, have the same plan, simplify that thing as much as possible. I mean, it is, again, a baseball game. It's supposed to be fun. The talent is off the charts. It's a game of adjustments. If you don't adjust, the game will leave you behind. And there's some obvious adjustments there. And I'm not saying, because again, I can't answer to this. I can't speak to this. I'm not in the dugout. I'm not in the anywhere, cage or anywhere they're having a conversation about hitting. I just know what it looks like every day. And it looks like Groundhog Day. Dude shows up, looks the same. Shows up the next day, looks like just like that. Like every once in a while, you think Davis Schneider had the talent Vladdy had. And Vladdy would make some tweaks to his lower half like Davis Schneider does. Catching balls out front to the pull side in the air. Like that's that's where we're at with this. This is why I brought that 11 homer, 58 RBI thing up. It's a thing now, right? That's if I'm thinking about this, khakis for the Blue Jays are thinking about it.
What confuses me about Bo, and we had John Schneider on a couple of weeks ago. He'll join us tomorrow again, by the way. But we had John Schneider on a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him this. And this is, and I admit that maybe I was guilty of being a little too simplistic. It does happen. But I was so used to, from having watched Bo throughout his career, I would never call a player slump-proof because I think slumps happen to the best players. But watching Bo up to this point, I never imagined he would have as prolonged a period of ineffectiveness as he's had this year. I just didn't, because he can cover.
I disagree. I couldn't disagree more.
Okay,
kicking it to your ear. Spinning the barrel behind your head, free swinger.
But it's worked for so many years.
It's worked for 2 years. Everybody has said that that's not what you do, right? Everybody, you remember having a conversation with his dad saying, if you draft us, he ain't changing. This is who he is. He's going to kick it to his ear. He's going to wrap it. He's going to do that 2-strike thing. He's been doing it forever. He ain't going to stop doing it. So if you draft him, don't even come up to him and ask him to do that. There's a reason why a lot of people don't do that. It's hard to do. Everybody, not everybody can think that they can get barrel to quadrants. He's thinking like oceans of quadrants. Like no human can do that. So I'm in that camp of not even thinking. And this is not surprising to me. And then you add the expectations to it, and you add, the front office not going out and giving help. And all right. So, again, it's that snowball thing. I've been a part of that snowball. Now, I'm not saying by any means I was ever the kind of hitter that Bo is, because I was not. But once the snowball starts going down the steep hill, sometimes it's real hard to stop it. That's why whoever wrote that article about change of scenery, is that you said that? Or you wrote the article? Whoever wrote that, or whoever said that?
Actually, it was Mark Feinsand.
Might be in that area.
It was Mark Feinsand who had an executive say to him that he gets the sense that Bo and Vladdy may be change of scenery candidates. And that's why I pointed it out to you, because I said that sends shivers down. It sends shivers down your spine, first of all, because even if it isn't true, the fact that an industry executive thinks that indicates to me that the impression is out there that is the case.
Yeah,
Mark's not going to make...
He's a big deal. He ain't going to make that up.
No, Mark doesn't have to.
Nope.
Mark's not going to make stuff like that up. Anyhow. So we didn't get Brandon Gomes. That's fine. We'll take a rain check with him. I imagine the Dodgers will be a story for a while anyhow. Caleb Joseph, he's available. He'll join us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker. It's an off day for the Blue Jays, but it's not an off day for us. At least in terms of whether or not we're working. It's up to you to decide whether or not the show's had an off day. I think the show's been pretty damn good, frankly. See, there you go. I'm optimistic, and it just takes
it's
one.
Rare. I told you, show up every day, be the same person. But you're like that giant roller coaster at Wally World. Like he's
what? Wally World. That's he calls Canada's Wonderland Wally World.
That's because my dad called it that one time, and I thought it's hilarious.
Isn't that in a movie? Isn't that a Chevy Chase movie?
I think so. A Chevy.
Chevy Chase?
That's true, yeah. I think that's who
it is. Chevy Chase?
I think
I don't
that's
know.
what.
I think it's
I think that's exactly what it's from.
Entertain the folks while I double check.
My dad said that, and it was hilarious. It made me fun. It made me laugh. So
Wally World. It's from National Lampoon's Vacation. There you go.
When he held him up with the water gun. You're getting on this ride.
I never watched those.
That show's hilarious.
Yeah, it's not.
You know you wouldn't because you don't like to laugh.
Oh, that's not true.
Yeah,
I thought Animal House was very funny, but after that, it's all been crap.
That's the worst.
That's what do you mean I don't like to laugh? You know I like to laugh. I'm a laugh riot.
It's rare.
I'm a laugh riot, man.
You are?
Yeah. I love, me. I love to laugh.
Well, it's whenever you do, it's like, what's wrong with you?
No, I love to laugh.
Do I need to call somebody?
Listen, if you've done a talk show in a city with the Blue Jays and the Leafs, you learn to laugh.
You do?
You have to. You just have to.
Well, you hit the jackpot with me. I laugh for both of us. How's that?
Yeah, I hit the jackpot. I hit something with you.
You did?
Yeah. You hit the jackpot all right.
Yeah. Huh. What time did you sleep in till today?
Shut up.
What happened?
You can't go there. That's just not fair. That's not fair.
I mean, our bosses are texting you, waking you up at a certain time.
Yeah. And then he got
and then he got chapped.
Well, because I got asked this question by our boss, and I responded.
Well,
sure.
Like you didn't care.
Well, I literally got out of bed, and I see this.
Thanks for getting up before noon.
And as long as the text doesn't say, "Hey, don't bother coming in today and return your pass card," I'm going to say sure.
Wow.
Anyhow,
what?
Do we have Caleb Joseph? Have we found him yet?
I'm sure he's golfing somewhere.
Okay. Apparently, we found
that's all
Caleb
he does
Joseph.
is golf. Where's he getting all this money? They make more money on that side over there than we do.
Are you kidding?
Well, do they?
You seen their wardrobe bill? Of course they do. Of course they make more money than we do.
I'm going to do something about that.
We're going to be joined by Jason Kipnis. He's the former Gardner second baseman and contributor in Foul Territory. Later on, we have Caleb Joseph.
I hope this guy had the worst round of golf he's ever had.
Did you go out golfing today or something,
Absolutely
Caleb?
Did.
Oh, did earlier, and I'm currently 2 over through 14. So if it goes south, I'm blaming you guys.
Well, 2 over south, no?
Yeah, but that's pretty good. Like that's like hitting a 115-mile-an-hour ground ball to the shortstop. It's not great, but it's pretty good.
It gets talked about for like a week at a time.
It does.
Yeah, I'm hitting the mess out of it.
Yeah, do it twice, and we'll make a chart of it for you, and you can put it up on TV. Hey, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Barker because Barker had no answer for this. It took him 5 minutes to basically say that he had no answer for it. But you're a catcher, so you're naturally smarter. So, when you look at Bo and Vladdy right now at the plate, who's the easier fix of the two of them?
Ooh.
Don't let me down here.
See? It's not an easy answer, is it?
Don't let me down here. You're going to let me down.
We got some music, Jeopardy music.
Exactly. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you. Don't pretend that you can't hear us as a way of stalling here.
Can you repeat the question?
Can you repeat the question? Do I have a lifeline? Can I call? Don't be doing that. I asked you a question.
You guys are smart.
Well,
honestly, right now, in its current form, right now.
Yes, right now.
I would say Vladdy, because for me, it's just a little bit about moving the contact point a little bit further out in front. I've seen him on time way better. I've seen some adjustability in his swing. I've seen some direction in his swing. Yesterday. That was a great pinch hit at bat. Just a little bit off the end, on time for a hundo. Directionally perfect, just a little bit off the end. Bo is a little bit more hit or miss for me. I'm seeing more consistency with Vladdy. Bo looks a little bit more lost. He'll square one up, and then he'll have 3 or 4 at-bats where he can. That's just so abnormal for Bo. And so it's a little weird that at this point in the season, he hasn't had a 6 or 7 week stretch where he's just thumping it. That's what's a little bit concerning for me.
Do you like the lineup now? Do you like the way they've made out the lineup, gaining momentum? I'm assuming that's what this is all about, is they're trying to find some momentum with the lineup. Do you like the way it's constructed as of yesterday because of the day off today?
Yeah, again, I'm just going to jump in here because one of the things we've talked about too is, since Horwitz has been up there and Schneider and Jansen, I mean, the top two guys in the order are getting on base now. Like we've had games where they were 4 for 8 yesterday. We had a cut. We had, I think, Jansen and Horwitz got on base 6 times, and the day before, like there's stuff happening at least with those with the top of the order now.
I totally agree. And as much as I want to make fun and say, well, Horwitz and Schneider and or Jansen, any combo 1-2 tells you everything you need to know about this offense. As much as I want to joke on it, it has worked. And I honestly think Horwitz is more of a leadoff 2-hole than Schneider is. Like, I kind of like Schneider. The more I think about it, the more I looked at the numbers, I had no idea that his leadoff numbers were so bad, to be perfectly honest with you. He really fits in good kind of around that 4, 5, 6. He has been an animal with runners in scoring position, to be honest with you. I had no idea until I dove in a little bit more. He's close to 300, about an 820 OPS with runners in scoring position. I really kind of like him sandwiched behind Vladdy, maybe behind Bo, depending on how Schneider feels like he wants to do it. But you know what? I really like Danny in the 2-hole. Yeah. He's going to draw his walks. He's got some power there. And so far, I really like what I see with Horwitz. What I see with him is adjustability in the swing. And it's really tough to kind of describe this, but he has a knack for getting hits on pitches that he's fooled on where, his lower body's still staying put. He's kind of leaning out in front, but his lower body's still hanging in there. And he has this ability to, like, decelerate the bat to get it on plane versus continue with a very hard swing, which is the rollover, which we see so many guys do. He has an ability to, like, almost decelerate the bat to get that little bloop hit, and it looks unlucky. It's about an exit velo of 65, and it will go down as a low probability hit. But I've played with players that have that ability. They have ability to square it up when they're fooled, but with just enough velocity to get it over the infielder, but not enough for the outfielder to catch it, if that makes any sense. And if he's done it 4 or 5 times, and I really think it's a thing for him.
Who would be the type of hitter you said you played with guys like that? Who comes to mind when you think of? Because I find that intriguing because it does. That's what we saw. We've seen. I mean, he does stuff. He survives at the plate and takes advantage of whatever opportunity he gets to create something. Who have you seen like that?
One of the best left-handed hitters I played with was Nick Markakis. Yeah. And he just had that ability to, but it's not like a total fly with the lower half where the hands kind of, they're thrown at the last minute, if that makes any sense. It's almost like he gets fooled and then he just kind of glides into it, if that makes any sense. And he kind of slowing everything down just to doink it right out in front. But it's barreled. And I remember Markakis doing that quite a bit. Of course, Ichiro, I think, was one of the better ones. Yeah. I didn't play with him, but just watching him and then having to face him quite a bit, he would, though, lose the lower half. Like, he would kind of do that traditional Japanese bail, but kind of flick the hands. But
he'd be halfway to first base, and the bat would still be in the zone.
Yeah. And you know what I've been impressed with is Horwitz he's got an uppercut, right? But as the ball gets higher, and especially as the ball gets closer to him, he reminds me a lot of Robinson Cano in the way that he attacks that ball. So Cano was so unbelievable in his prime at getting that ball, kind of a cut fastball from a right-hander up and in, just above the belt. He would be able to swing full, meet it out in front in terms of the handle of the bat is leading, the barrel is trailing, so it's technically out front, but it's so deep that he's able to really shoot that ball down the third baseline or right over the third baseman's head on a ball that's beat him up and in, much like Bo. But Bo has more of a tilt. Cano would be flat behind it. And so there's so many hits that way. The more I see of Horwitz, the more I'm impressed with his bat control. But Cano is one of the best at doing that. And I've seen Spencer do that 2 or 3 times. He did it twice in Milwaukee where he shot kind of a middle-in fastball right down the third baseline, and that's by design. That is a barrel in the zone, angle out in front. So it's out in front, but with angle in the bat, meaning the barrel's trailing. You continue to swing, that barrel lagging creates the direction. You barrel it up, there you go. It's. Boy, I wish I would have known that when I played. Man, how'd it hit 235?
Me too, 240. I did hit 240. I sent to double A. What do you think they should do with Tim Mesa?
Well, he's been a good soldier for a long time. And you look at kind of what he went through. He logged a ton of innings. You're going to have to help me out with years. I've been hit in the face so many times with foul balls. I got scrambled eggs for brains. But he logged a ton of innings. Then he came and was hurt, had the Tommy John. And they kind of stood by him, I think, after that.
Mm-hmm.
He had a couple really nice years. But what I worry about with left-handed pitchers in the same league on the same team, unless you have a super unique pitch, which may be a Zach Britton type of sinker or a unique arm angle, think of Loop, Aaron Loop, that kind of way down there. Unless you have that,
Brendan
you
Little,
better be pumping.
who they have now. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You better be pumping 97 consistently. I just feel like the more a team sees you, the more you got to really have a unique pitch or a unique setup. And I think that's why left-handers start to bounce around quite a bit. And they can go from one team who they were with 4 or 5 years. You can go to the NL Central and carve out another year, then go to the AL West, carve out another year, then pop back into the NL East. Like, I think they start bouncing around guys that don't have that unique pitch.
That's what Aaron Loop did.
I don't see that unique pitch with Mesa. And I think I would obviously never advocate for somebody, to be released, but I really think they've got to sit down and kind of look at where they want to go with this, because it boxes John in to just a few options in a tight game. And there was a game still there to be had. And it just shows you those tack-on runs in the big leagues are massive, absolutely massive. They would have won that game if they could have stopped the bleeding. And unfortunately, they weren't able to.
To your point, 346 games, 280 innings pitched, all in the American League East.
Yeah.
That's a lot of innings for a lefty throwing 91. That's a lot. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I just don't. It's almost like they're throwing him because they have to throw him, not because they want to throw him. That's never a good thing for anybody. So I'm with you. Sooner or later, you got to have a tough conversation, right? It's the big leagues. The reality is you're 2 games under 500, and because of the runs that you don't score, every time you hand the ball to somebody, they almost have to be perfect. Right now, Tim's not that way. It's just not happening.
They didn't have any problem hurting feelings to Cavan Biggio either.
Boom.
So there is a bit of precedent. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's they're making a statement that they're making changes because they're trying to win. And I don't think you can stop at a 26-man position player. I think you got to look up and down the roster.
What do you do with George Springer? George Springer's sort of in the same boat as Tim Mason. I'm not saying that that's what you would do is release him, but what would have to happen for them to start playing him 4 days a week instead of 6 or 7 days a week?
Ooh. Is there anybody else in AAA that can hit? I mean, he plays such good defense that it just kind of, you need other guys to step up too. But it is pretty amazing, though, when you sit there and look at it, that your highest paid player is probably the one guy in the lineup that I think most fans want out and benched and released and all this stuff. And it's tough. I'm not sure that John Schneider's willing to have a conversation with George Springer to say, hey, man, you're going to be hitting 2 or 3 days a week until you figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure he's willing to have that. And I guess I don't blame him, but you had a tough conversation with Cavan. Looks like you might be having another tough conversation soon coming up. Do you want to win or do you not want to win? Are you worried about what, a $150 million player who's hitting under 200 says to you, or are you worried about trying to win baseball games? What's the alternative? That's another question I think you bring up a lot and is a great point, Barker. I mean, yeah, they can start configuring some stuff around. We saw Barshow play in right field a couple times. And,
This was predictable, Caleb. Like in the spring training and the off season, when I'd talk to you and me, Jeff, would have all these conversations. This is predictable. Like this is them not scoring runs and guys having lesser years than they had last year. And Jeff said this forever about Springer. I mean, he played all the time last year.
He was healthy last year, and his numbers were bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's predictable. Like that's the whole point here, right? And I just wonder how this is going over in the clubhouse. I wonder. I just wonder, like they're on a team that's supposed to be doing things, and their highest paid players really doing nothing other than on the defensive side. It's a lot to pay a guy who only plays defense. I mean, he's got 14 RBIs. Like, I mean, and they're putting him. It's almost like the Chapman thing, which is what Jeff says all the time. You remember last year, you tried. They were trying. And it's like yesterday, right? He comes up with the bases loaded, nobody out, and he looked like me at the plate. It's a hard look. I wonder when the rubber's gonna meet the road with that. I just wonder.
Yep. And Dalton Varsho had a conversation with Hazel May before yesterday's game, and he was mentioning, she had asked, what's the difference in the last couple of weeks? Is there anything that you feel? And he did say there's a little bit more unity now inside the clubhouse, inside the dugout, where guys are really pulling for each other. And he said early on in the season it wasn't that way. And I can only think of a very high-paid player who's very used to doing big things, who is moving around the lineup, who isn't getting it done. I can imagine that's weighed on just about everybody. I will say this. When I had a conversation with George in the clubhouse about 3 weeks ago, I will say he was an absolute stand-up man and accepted the fact that he hadn't gotten it done. And I really respect that about him. He looked me right in the face and he said, I haven't lived up to my part of the deal. I've got to be better. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm trying everything. I'm willing to make any adjustment. I'll hit wherever. And so at least you know that that's where he's coming from. And it looked genuine. He looked me right in the eye. I believed every word he said. Now, still doesn't make him hit 290 with 20 homers, but I do appreciate him kind of being that way about it. But yeah, you can maneuver some stuff around. It's going to lead to some conversations that just whether or not John wants to have them or not.
Yeah, well said,
Caleb. I think all three of us probably had the same reaction yesterday when we watched the Blue Jays throw through. I mean, I actually, before it happened, I'm going to give Barker credit. We were watching it, and he said, "I better not throw through here," it happened, and we just looked at each other, and I heard what John said after the game, but, I mean, my goodness, I went back and looked at the play, and I tried to look at it, and I know John said, the Brewers were trying to they were trying to get cute and all this. I can't put the ball in the middle of the field in that play when I got two dudes who can run, and I've got a righty at the plate a righty on the mound who's been decent for me. That was such a low percentage play, Caleb. I just don't know why you would even think of it.
Yep, totally agree. I would love to know what the exact play was put on. And what I mean by that is if first and third, you've got basically simple plays. You've got to fake, you've got to throw back to the pitcher, you've got to throw to third, you've got to throw through, you've got to eat it. But we also had a play that was designed to throw through with no intention of the ball getting to second base, and the second baseman and or shortstop was going to cut it off. That was a different play. So you have two different plays. You're either throwing all the way to second base to try and get the base stealer, or you are absolutely throwing it to a cutoff man. Why this is so important is because when you have elite speed at first base, like the Brewers have in terrain, 98th percentile in sprint speed, you have Alejandro Kirk. If he gets the throw through called play, and there's no distinguishing between either one of them, as soon as that runner goes, what is he thinking? Throw the guy out at all costs. Yeah. So what happens when you have elite speed and you have about a 1.65 from pop to home plate? You rush, you speed up, you do all the things that we saw in the sixth inning. You have a short hop. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa went straight to second base instead of coming all the way in. No need to go to second base if you're playing a throw through with a cut play. That's the only play that I could potentially understand is a throw through with a cut. What would have been different if as the catcher, knew that? I knew Kiner-Falefa would be coming up. He would be close. I would then make sure I got a good grip, make sure I got good footwork. That takes 2 extra milliseconds, and I'm throwing a strike right at the cut of the dirt and the grass to ensure that the ball is handled correctly so they could be redirected back to home. But if there was any gray in that play, if it was a throw through and a read from IKF, it's garbage, absolute garbage, because all of those factors I just mentioned, absolute garbage. And they lost the game, in my opinion, because of that play right there. Yeah, no, I mean, it opened the door and things just spiraled out of control, and I felt the same way. I mean, I'm not breaking it down as technically as you did, but
my thought process was, with all due respect to Alejandro Kirk, I don't want to find myself in a position where he has to make a key defensive play for me or a defensive throw. I'm sorry, I just don't.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah, and Jeff, that's with a throw to the middle of the field. I should probably go back and say that there's no shot I even would have put it in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Because I'm trusting Pop versus Contreras. I'm trusting that. And I know that I know the manager, Murphy, is doing that on purpose. Like, why is he doing that? He's doing that on purpose. He's trying to steal a run. Well, let me ask you this. If Aaron Judge was up, do you think they run terrain?
No.
Like, I don't think so. So they're kind of telling you what they're telling you. Oh, and another thing, too, is Contreras is a step-in-the-bucket opposite field hitter. He's got the most ground balls to the right side of the infield in the big leagues as a right-handed hitter. Go look at Isaiah Kiner-Falefa's positioning. He's shaded almost behind second base. How that happened, I have no idea. And why Pop is throwing a sinker inside to a guy that's closed and is stepping in the bucket trying to go opposite field, I have no idea. I'd have slidered him to death or backdoor sinker, he'd have no shot. That whole inning was just screwed. It was just, they deserved to lose because so many things went wrong. And that's what stinks is when you had a game at hand, yes, 1-0, but you got to win some games like that here and there, and you got to play perfect baseball, and they gave it away, and those are the losses that stung me the hardest.
Bam, you nailed that, buddy.
Good stuff, buddy.
Way to go!
Now go hit it straight and far.
Now I hope you do better at golf. I was rooting against you for a while, but now I'm rooting for you.
Hey, don't be afraid to put a little 12 dozen Pro V1s in my locker one time.
Hold your breath. Hold your breath. It'll be there soon enough. Okay.
Lee Trevino, Top Flight XL 3000, coming my way, right? And,
It's in the mail. It's in the mail already.
You hit him so far left and right. You're like, I ain't going to find that one.
It's a bad
Lee Trevino. How old are the balls you're using?
Yeah, no, I'm saying those are the ones Barker's using.
Those are the ones
Trevino
Barker's
XL 3000, 1999 special.
Straight, and they put the blinker on it. It goes about 300 feet left.
See you, buddy. Thanks, Ben.
See you, dog.
See you,
boy.
You got it.
Caleb Joseph. We'll put him down about being undecided about that play. No, listen, that's it's great getting a catcher's eye view of the thing because when a play you played first base. I got to tell people this: if you could be beside Barker when there is a play made at first base that's a little funky or a little out of the ordinary. Hearing him break down that play as it's happening and then going back over is something else. Like, you're the guy, you always talk about feet positioning and meeting the ball at the bag and all that. And it's the same thing with Caleb talking about that play. Like, bang, bang, bang. You guys have seen those things develop like that.
Well, there's a reason why he wasn't the greatest of hitters, but he was in the big leagues for whatever, I think it was a little over 8 years.
And you know what?
That's why.
And there's a reason a guy like Buck Showalter
that's why.
Had trust in
Caleb Joseph. I mean, catching big-time games and knowing that, a guy steps in the bucket and gets a bunch of hits to right field.
I hadn't even thought of that.
The second baseman shouldn't be standing behind second base. He should be more playing in that first and second hole. And we're not going to throw him sinkers in. He steps in the bucket. He wants the ball in.
Yeah.
That's the way his bat path is going. You're giving him a chance. If you look back, that's how Bassett was getting him out by sprinkling them slow breaking balls away. And, I think the one time he threw his bat and, to the third base dugout, I think, on a slow breaking ball because he's stepping in the bucket, front side pulling, those kind of things. So, yeah, it's just sort of thinking it out before it actually happens, seeing it play out in your mind, and that makes you a little bit better of a player. Guys like Caleb and myself, we had to do that. If we didn't, we were not in the big leagues. I mean, it's that simple. I didn't have as much time as Caleb did because I had to get the foot down and get it singing. I had to have a one-way ticket to Back Leg City. And if I didn't, I was in Double-A. Caleb didn't. Caleb could get away with that. I see the second baseman, Tiempo, you come together. While you're standing there, stand right there. He's getting a bunch of sliders. You get him out. You win a baseball game. That's how Caleb stayed in the game. Me, I was the guy hitting and supposed to hit it out of the yard. So, it's a big difference there. It's kind of fun listening to guys who actually had to think their way through and stay in the big leagues.
Yeah, no, it really is. Cool. It was really good insight.
Great answer.
Jason Kipnis is a former Cleveland Guardian second baseman. He's a contributor to the Foul Territory podcast, my second favorite baseball podcast. He's also in town this weekend with the Guardians. He will serve as their radio analyst. He joins us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker for an off day.
Not for us.
Not for us. No, never an off
Somebody
day
just
for us.
told me I had an ugly shirt. Is that true?
I mean,
Tell me the truth.
I don't know how you describe it.
Colorful and different. Like me.
Care to say who it was?
No. You know who it was.
I know who it was. And I got to say this, my friend, and I can say this to you, you have more things to worry about than Barker's shirt.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Let's bring in Jason Kipnis. He is a former Guardian second baseman, former MLBer. He is a co-conspirator, I'm going to call him, on the Foul Territory podcast, which we love and which we're lucky to have a nice relationship with. He is in Toronto this weekend doing radio analysis for the Jays Guardian series. Jason, thanks for joining us. We trust that you're doing well. Welcome to our city. I mean, you know, the Cleveland Guardians, I'm going to, with all due respect to the Guardians, they're kind of everything offensively I didn't think they were going to be this year. How has this happened?
Well, first, thank you for having me on, guys. Appreciate it, and always love the city of Toronto and happy to be back here. Secondly, it's because they're not flashy. There's not a name besides Jose Ramirez maybe that you're drawn to in that lineup or that is causing ticket sales to happen or anything like that. It's just 1 through 9. They're going to lean on you and get guys on base, and they're going to break through. They don't care how it looks or how it happens. It doesn't have to be a long ball. It doesn't have to be small balls. They just want to score runs, and they're adamant about it, and they pursue it for 9 innings and come after you, and I love it.
Josh Naylor leads first basemen in homers and RBIs. How has that been taking place?
I mean, if you look at him last year, he was almost doing the same thing. I feel like he had the best numbers, or at least top 2 or 3 for first baseman, and somehow wasn't an all-star. So that's what I mean, where maybe just being in Cleveland, they're not getting that full attention. But I saw someone bring up a good point where when it's just Jose and Josh who are these 3 and 4 hitters or something like that, without a lot of guys that don't hit home runs, or with a lot of guys that don't hit home runs, there's a lot more traffic on bases and a lot less guys who clear those bases. So those two always seem to be coming up with guys on base.
You know, it also seems to me, Jason, when you talk about that when I look at this lineup, you know, first of all, I mean, listen, Jose Ramirez, I've said this in the show, Jose Ramirez has been one of my favorite players for 6 years. And if I had to pick a guy that I would take on the Blue Jays tonight,
absolutely,
Jose Ramirez would be the perfect guy. But I'll look at this lineup, and between him, and yeah, we talk about Naylor, but between him, Kwan, and Naylor, it seems to me that they're such a nicely balanced, nicely tuned lineup, almost top to bottom.
Yes, very much so. I think you hit it on the head right there with it's just a lot of tough outs in a row. It's a lot of just guys who are coming up and trying to give good at-bats, not trying to do something else. They're just trying to give good at-bats. So they're very balanced, and then they make it hard on starting pitchers, and that's what you want to do as an offense.
How's the new manager, Stephen Vogt, been?
From what I hear, he's been awesome. I'm looking to catch up with him tomorrow. I haven't reconnected with him just yet, as I just got into the hotel room today. But I'll see him at the field tomorrow. But from all accounts that I'm hearing, they love him. He's keeping them loose, which is perfect to have a guy who can do that right after Tito was there. It's exactly what you want a coach to do, and they're playing hard for him. So on my account and all accounts I'm hearing, it's been a great start so far.
You know, it's interesting hearing you mention Tito because we had him on a couple of weeks ago, and I've talked to guys who've played. I've covered baseball for a long time. I've talked to guys who played for Tito, and one of the things they say is when he leaves a place, a lot of him stays in that place for a while. He is the type of manager, you know, that when he goes, there's a lot of things that he has developed. A lot of the principles kind of hold true. You saw that firsthand. Can you explain that maybe to people who haven't played for Terry Francona?
I'm going to simplify it, and you're absolutely right. Picture someone who's just like the class clown or like in the middle of the room and with all the jokes. And once he walks out, let's say he has to go to a meeting,
you're still laughing at him after he leaves the room, or you're still talking about that joke, or you're still, now that he's still gone, but other people have picked up the joke and carrying it on even further. That's just a small instance. Now, do that over like however many years he was in Cleveland. That's the effect you're seeing and that you're talking about, is that, yes, he's left the room, but a lot of the stuff and jokes and the way he ran stuff has carried on. And that's what you want. You want the good parts of the last guy to stay.
We just had a Brewers person on that covers the Brewers on an everyday basis, and we were talking about the stolen bases, and that was sort of a on-purpose thing in spring training. They show up, they want to put more pressure on. We've seen them do that to the Jays in the last game, where you start the runner on first, runner on third. You're trying to steal a run that way. Is there something when it comes to that, maybe that the Guardians are doing different this year than in past years, you think?
They might be doing it different this year than in past years just because of their personnel. I think they have guys. They have a bunch of young guys who can run. And when you have that, I think you'd be stupid not to use that to your advantage or use it into your game plan. So if it's you need to be able to run to put pressure on defenses, even if it's not necessarily stealing bases, but going first to third, second to home. You have to be aggressive. And when you have the aggressive mindset as an offense as a whole, it's infectious. Like if you see, especially like Jose Ramirez, who we're talking about, when you have your best player probably running your hardest, other guys are going to fall in line and run just as hard. So it's a group thing, and it's fun to watch.
Well said.
Hey, were you surprised that Jose Ramirez elected to sign and stay in Cleveland?
Great question.
Not surprised, no. We have, from the time I was there to even now, it is a great place to play. It's an underrated place to play. Mm-hmm. You hear people, just because they think of Cleveland or these Detroits or these Midwest cities that aren't as glamorous as maybe a Toronto or the bigger cities, there are some beautiful neighborhoods around Cleveland, and there's a beautiful ballpark there. And sometimes you can go to New York and be in this big pond, or you can be the big fish in the little pond and almost feel like you're a bigger star than some of those guys. So I don't think anything you can bring to Jose's feet is going to change his mind. I think he's gotten comfortable. He loves his routine there. He loves his house there. And just don't undervalue how nice it is to be comfortable and happy where you are.
The Guardians' pen is first in baseball in ERA and first in average against. Why do you think that is?
Say it one more time.
The pen for the Guardians is first in baseball in ERA and first in average against. Why do you think that is?
Have you watched some of these guys pitch?
Yeah, Emmanuel Clase. Obviously he's one of the guys, but I mean, to have an ERA of 2.33, that's like next level. The Blue Jays got something in the 4 range. Like it's, almost doubled. I just wonder why it's that good. Yeah.
Most bullpens probably hover high 3s and creep into the 4s at times.
Yeah.
But to be in the 2s is insane. And you don't have to start with him, but you sure will finish with Clase, where when you have a guy like that at the back of the bullpen who just throws that invisible 100-mile-an-hour cutter like it's already wasn't hard enough to hit, there's just confidence that oozes from the next man on. When you're able to fill out whose inning is what, you can play matchups. Guys know who they're prepared for, and they're prepared when to go in. That's where I think Vogt's doing a real good job as a manager. And but just over this next series, watch some of these guys' stuff. Their off speed's fantastic, and with guys on base, they get even better.
Let's presume that the Guardians continue to play at this level. Maybe there's a bit of a fall off, but let's presume that they play at this level. What do you think they would be looking to add at the trade deadline, Jason, if everything sort of stays the way it is?
I know there's a fun rumor with one of your guys. I know Bo Bichette has been the talk of like a match. He matches up well with Cleveland. I think if you look up and down the lineup with Jose being switched, Naylor being lefty, you'd probably like to add a right-handed bat somewhere. It's never a bad idea to add pitching, but I think pitching's pretty solid on this team. Like we just mentioned, the bullpen. So if you want to get in starter, great. But I'd like to see some right-handed power come into their lineup a little bit more.
Jason, really good of you to do this, man. Thanks so much. Terrific insight.
Yeah,
do well.
Awesome.
Appreciate you guys having me on. Take care.
See you, buddy.
Jason Kipnis, who is a contributor to Foul Territory. He was a really, really nice player, man.
Yeah.
He was a really nice player to watch.
Cutter's sort of the thing now, right? I think it's funny. Clase throws a 100-mile-an-hour cutter. That's a little bit different. But, you're starting to notice, even with Jay's guys, about how do you take the sting out of the bat. It ain't so much anymore about swing and miss as it is take the sting out of the bat. How do you do that? And having that little late movement and doing it with power. I remember facing cutters when I was coming up, but it wasn't 95-mile-an-hour cutters or 96 or 100-mile-an-hour cutters. So I think that's funny. That's sort of right. It's the split finger when it comes to you can't tell the difference between a split finger and a fastball, and it's hard to tell the difference between a four-seamer and a cutter. And then you add velocities to the mix. It's very hard. It makes it tough on a hitter. That's why you're probably seeing the averages go down the way they have in big leagues.
I mean, the only thing about the cutter, and this is, Captain Obvious. You hear guys say this all the time. I'm always a little concerned when I hear that a guy who has a bit of a track record has developed a cutter and is working on it. Because if it seems to me to be, if it's the one pitch, if it's like your third pitch, it's the one pitch that's probably going to screw you in a game.
Well, it's because of where you have to start it, right? It's
but if it doesn't, it's a BP heater. It's a BP heater.
It is, right? And it's the grip on the finger, which finger you're putting pressure on. I mean, it's almost looking like a slider, right? It's got a slider spin the way you want it to move. But if you want to make it look like a strike and get a swing on it, it's where you start it. And if it doesn't cut, because you have to take a little bit off of it because of how much pressure you got to put on one of your fingers to have it move the way it's going to move. If it's not 100 like Clase, which you can get away with it if it's down the middle that way, right? Which he doesn't throw a ton of this down the middle. So you add location and then you add power with a guy like that. You can understand why he's 20 out of 23 and save opportunities. It's a handful. So I just find that intriguing, right? You're seeing Pop go through that. Do you throw it? Do you throw it against a good left-handed hitter? When do you throw it? Do you throw it with a dude on base? I mean, Pop's coming in games now that matter.
Yeah.
Right? He's not coming in.
He's coming in the leverage now.
Yeah, he is doing that. So do you throw it in the meat of the order against a good left-handed pitcher or a good left-handed hitter? That's when your sinker is your thing and your slider is your thing. And I don't know. It's a lot to ask. I mean, sometimes you got to be a little careful about when you do it and make sure you're missing good.
I got to tell you, by the way, Jason kind of threw me for a loop there when he was talking about trade rumors involving Bowen and the Guardians. That kind of
I have not heard that. I mean, it makes sense with the two guys that are running the Jays, where they came from.
Yeah,
the information that they would know in the minor league system, and
there used to be this old thinking too that, you know what, if you're a general manager and you're moving a player of consequence, a player that, I mean, we're talking a guy the organization drafted, signed, spent money on, developed, yada, yada, et cetera, et cetera. It is remarkable how many times guys go to what they used to know and which organization they used to work for to make that trade, because there might be a little bit of this guy isn't really going to screw me, quite frankly, because I hired him and gave him his job.
They know what makes it tick, the sort of the organization and, what prospects, because it would take plural to get him. What sense does it make for the Blue Jays?
Again, we don't. I get tired of saying this, and I know it frustrates people, but I'm just being honest here. I just have no sense of literally anything could happen in the next month, and I'd go, yeah, okay, I could see that. They could sign both those guys in the next month. I'd go, nah.
Yeah, see, I can't see that.
No, but I mean, I can't imagine we don't. I can't imagine it's not done because we don't have enough money. Like, anything can happen with these guys, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Maybe.
I tend to think we're probably not going to see anything happen. I tend to think that you take another run at signing one of them or two of them in the offseason, and I really am a big fan. I mean, unless somebody's given you a Juan Soto type of a deal for these guys, and you're not going to do it because you're not going to have either of these guys for the same amount of time as the trading team was going to have Juan Soto because of service time. I would let's not get cute in season. Let's try to address it in the off season where maybe we can move some pieces around to make it work a little better. But I honestly don't. I honestly don't have any idea.
I mean,
I cannot read this organization.
Let's be real. Neither guy is having a good season. They're not. Vladdy's got 7 homers and 30 RBIs. Doesn't have an 800 OPS.
Yeah.
Like, again, he's not in top 50 in total bases. Yeah. Bo's got an OPS of a little over 600.
We have the technology. We can fix them.
Okay, but it's all about what you have to give up to get either one of them. I mean, it ain't like you're just going to back up the prospect truck and say, pick 7 of them. I mean, the year they're having would have to matter a little.
I don't know. I don't know if it does.
Because even if he went to the Guardians, Bo goes to the Guardians, all of a sudden he's going to start raking?
No, the thing is, your point is well made in that if you are a team that wants to win this year or thinks it can win this year, I would think you probably wouldn't want somebody who's a bit of a project. Like, you don't want to acquire a guy and then need 3 weeks to sort of rework him. But I don't. Against baseball, everybody thinks they can reinvent the wheel. And the thing about Bo, and I keep getting back to this, there's more of a positive track record there than there is with Vladdy. There is. If I said to you, next year, what's more likely to happen? Bo leads the American League in hits or Vladdy hits 50 home runs?
50's a lot.
Well, whatever. Okay. Well,
30 and 100.
No.
30 and 100.
No.
Because he hadn't done that in a couple of years.
Well, okay, but I'm saying, you've seen, how many home runs did he hit when he was runner-up in the MVP
45
season?
or 6 or 7?
That's fine. I'm taking their best years. And I'm saying, what is more likely to happen again? Vladdy hits, I'll give you 35 to 45 home runs, or Bo leads the league in hits. What do you think is more likely to happen next year? Probably Bo leading him in hits, because he's done it for 2 years in a row. This is an off year for him. Is this an off year for Vladdy in terms of power?
Yeah, I think it's about the team that wants the certain person and what they want from that certain person. Do I want a guy who hits leadoff, or do I want a guy that's driving in the leadoff hitter? That's the difference.
But Vladdy is not driving in the leadoff hitter.
Bo.
No, but
that's the thing, right? It's all about who the caller is, like what they want and what they want from that certain person. I'm not saying that Vladdy's a 50 home run guy, because the power the other way is a little head scratching consistently. That's why I'm mentioning the mechanics with the lower half. But we're beating a dead horse with that. So look, again, I've said this and I'll continue to say it. Nothing is not an option for me. The Jays got to do something.
There's a lot of chatter about Luis Robert. And I'm just, as a matter of fact, just thinking of foul territory. I just happened to plug in foul territory on Twitter or X, or whatever the hell Elon's calling it today. And there's Eric Kratz, our boy, Kratzy and Przinski. And they're talking to Hannah Kaiser about Luis Robert. And there's at least, she's saying, and this is the same thing John Heyman has said, and keep in mind that when John Heyman speaks, it's Scott Boras. There's at least 6 suitors: Dodgers, Phillies, Braves, Royals, Mariners, Blue Jays.
I mean, he never plays. When he plays, he's really good. I mean, he's played 100 games one time in his career.
Wasn't he the guy at one play, but weren't we at a game last year? Wasn't he the guy that made a couple of errors in the outfield where he kind of half-assed it on a fly ball to center field?
That's the Eloy.
Okay.
Jimenez.
I stand corrected.
That's who that was.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, that's who that was.
You remember that game, though? Remember we were talking about.
Roberts had to run over and actually catch balls in right field.
That's right.
And
okay.
Why you doing that? And, they were making fun of each other, stay in your lane and because it looked like he's never played outfield before. It's that kind of thing. Look, I'm not saying Robert's not a good player. Don't good players have to play?
Yeah. Like I said, best.
What do the Jays have to give?
Best abilities availability.
What do they have to give up to get him? I'm sure you wouldn't give him up for free.
No, that's. Yeah, I mean, that sounds to me very much like that's one of those situations where you trade Bo for him. Like, I mean, what's your net gain? I don't know. You know what it'd be? It would make sense now. It would make sense. The hell is that? That's a big one. I mean, that thing ought to have a movie showing on it. Anyhow,
it's the first thing to go, ain't it? You get a little.
No, it was just.
You seeing things?
No, it was a big thing flew across here. I checked my glasses, but anyhow.
I can see really well.
Well, I know you can't because I've seen you try to read.
That's why.
But my point is, a guy like Luis Robert makes sense for the Blue Jays if you were going to bring him in to help Vladdy and Bo, not bring him in for Vladdy and Bo. It makes sense to bring him in, and then what are you giving up to get that? If you're the White Sox, they're not going to take Yusei Kikuchi because he's a free agent. They got no use for him. Jordan Romano isn't healthy.
They're young studs. I guess what they're looking for.
And
guys that are ready 2 years from now.
Arelvis Martinez. I mean, they got Arelvis Martinez. They don't need Arelvis Martinez. So
Ricky
you're looking at
a
youngish everyday guy, Dalton Varsho. There's something about the Luis Robert, and I understand that he's under control for a while. There's just something about that deal that's never really made sense for me when it comes to the Blue Jays.
I mean, it's the obvious. He doesn't play.
No, I mean,
that's the obvious.
If the White Sox want to do something stupid like take George Springer off my hands. Well, again, don't forget, the Vernon Wells contract was never going to be traded until it was traded. It cost a GM a job in Anaheim. But there is no such thing as an untradeable contract.
Not to the White Sox.
Yeah, I'm throwing that out there. That's why I'm saying I'm trying to see how this deal would make sense.
We'll give you this guy and that guy if you take this guy.
Yeah,
who plays right. That's.
But you see my point, though, right? About I don't think adding Luis Robert for one of Bo or Vladdy as part of the package makes sense.
No.
I want to have him in here to help those guys. So then if I'm not trading those two, Danny Jansen's not going to do it for the White Sox because he's a free agent. See, I'll tell you a thing I would really keep an eye on. And I've been thinking about this, and I actually fired off a text to Stark, and I haven't heard back from him. But I'm keeping an eye on JT Realmuto's health. Because
Danny Jansen.
And there's an article in one of the Philadelphia papers saying that they, if he's out for a while, David Dombrowski, grass does not grow under his feet.
Well, they're the best team in baseball. So you do what you have to do. You're the best team in baseball.
And they have said they would like a guy who, if Realmuto comes back, can play a couple of times a week. And I mean,
they can sign Danny. It's not going to cost him a ton of money. He'd be happy in Philly. Like, he's a quiet dude, He'd be a fan favorite because he thumps. Like,
he kind of got Philly. He's got a little bit of Philly written all over him,
He don't have to hit second for them. I mean, Realmuto's hitting second, but he's very athletic and run off all over the place and steal bases.
I can see a contending team wanting Danny Jansen.
Absolutely.
I can absolutely
see a big target.
Team.
He's a good game caller. He takes control, and he thumps.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch thumpers.
That's it for us. We'll be back tomorrow from 4 to 6 Eastern on Sportsnet 590, The Fan and Sportsnet. The manager, John Schneider, joins us tomorrow. Jeff Passan will be along as well for his regular appearance, so I'm sure we'll have more trade rumors from Mr. Passan. Have yourself a great night. We'll chat tomorrow.